YouTube. I recently got back from about a month-long trip to the States, and that unfortunately was smack bang in the middle of NaNoWriMo. Of course, I had started writing my novel at that point in time, and I wasn't going to let the fact that I was traveling to the other side of the world stop me from writing. Now, I didn't exactly hit my 50,000 word target, but I came not really pretty close, but I 2/3 of the way there. What I did find, however, is that I picked up a few really useful tips, and I'm going to share them with you guys. So here are my 5 useful tips for writing whilst traveling. My first useful tip is to always carry a notebook and a pen. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what you're doing. I always keep a little A5 book that I have actually swiped from the office. Free stationery! And I keep it in my bag with me, no matter where I'm going. It would be in my travel bag. So if I ever found that I was waiting for a bus, or if I was eating a meal or having a drink, I would then take out my book and write down what I see, what I hear, and of course when inspiration hits, it's a really good idea to have your notebook at really close hand. My second tip is to take advantage of any time whatsoever that you have to write. So when I was in the States, I was spending a lot of time catching planes from one state to the other. I think I took around about 12 to 15 flights, something like that. I spent a lot of time in airports. Now, whenever I got on the plane, I would put everything away, and the only thing that I would have out is my notebook on my lap. And then as soon as we got to altitude, the tray table would come down and I would be writing, just in the zone, stick in my earphones and write. Also, if I was catching a bus somewhere, I would usually have my notebook out as well. Now, it can be a bit hard sometimes remembering that, especially when you're on holidays, you're in a place where you've never been before and you've got all these cool things going on around you. You do need to take some time to yourself, and you do need to take some quiet time to reflect. So one thing that I found worked for me was that at the beginning of the day, I would first of all write down everything that I wanted to do for the day, like from a trip point of view, and then at the end of the day, I would kind of write down in dot point form what I did for the day. Now, this may not specifically speak to whatever it is that you're writing, unless you're writing a travel journal or a memoir of some sort, but it does get you into the habit of writing first thing in the morning and at nighttime as well, so that you can think about your day and everything that went on. If you can get yourself into the habit of just taking out your book at regular intervals, then you're gonna start developing a really good habit for just writing. You won't have to think about making the time anymore, because you're automatically going to plan your day around that time. My third tip is to keep your ears open. I heard some of the most hilarious conversations and snippets between people, whether I was in a bar in Salem, Massachusetts, or a saloon in Tombstone, or another bar in Boston. I spend a lot of time drinking. Though usually you'll find that places where there is alcohol or coffee are usually when you're going to find the greatest concentration of the local inhabitants. So then you're going to have a greater glimpse into the lives of the people in the place that you're visiting. So you might get names, you might get bits of dialogue. If there's anything that sticks out to you, just write it down. Now, don't be too worried about being a bit of a creeper, because believe me, people are thinking of it. We're writers. We take everything that we experience, and eavesdropping is an experience. My fourth tip is to people watch, because whilst you're eavesdropping on these people's conversations, have a look at them. I spent a good 2 hours in San Francisco sitting at the Starbucks, which was directly across from the Great Gate of Chinatown in San Francisco, just watching the people. It was about 5 o'clock at night and everybody was coming home from work, and the different sorts of people that you saw crossing the road was amazing. Now, when I'm people watching, I also like to try and think to myself, where are they going? What was their day like? What did they do? Do they look angry? Do they look sad? See if you can try and put together kind of like a tiny little split-second narrative in your head of what this person has been doing. Another advantage of people watching is that you can see the various different ways that people will interact with each other, especially looking at a busy place like an intersection. You can see the different mannerisms that people have when they run into people, when they dodge away from people, people who are calling for taxis, people who are in a rush somewhere, someone with a limp, someone with a child, a family running along. Think of all these different combinations and see if you could incorporate some of these mannerisms and some of these ideas into whatever it is that you're writing at the moment. Add it to your character profile for one of your characters. Even if it's just a tiny thing, like giving your main character a limp. It might lead on to something potentially plot-worthy later. And my fifth tip is to stop and think. Seriously, just stop and think. If you're in the middle of doing something or visiting somewhere, stop and look around and imagine, if I was my character, what would I be doing here? I was really fortunate enough to take a helicopter ride into the Grand Canyon, and I stood on the bottom of the Grand Canyon just out of Las Vegas, and I looked around at these massive towering walls around me and thought to myself, this is too good to waste. I have so many scenes in quite a few of my books where characters are journeying from one side of the world to the other. Obviously there's got to be canyons in there somewhere. For the first time in my life, I was experiencing a canyon, and so I had to think to myself, alright, if I was my character, what would they be doing right now? If there's a river, would one of the characters be down at the river getting water? Would one of the characters be jumping into the river, drowning, or swimming if they know how to swim? What would they interact with? Are there any trees? Is there a bicycle half buried in the sand? And if there is it a useful bicycle? Is it useful in the plot? This can also really help you get into the habit of descriptions. Now, personally, I don't really have that much of a problem with my descriptions, because when I'm recalling things and imagining things and seeing the story in my head, I'm literally seeing it in my head. So when I put these things onto paper, I'm describing what I'm seeing in my head. However, if you don't have that kind of approach, because I don't really want to call it a skill, but if you find that it's quite hard for you to visualize some environments, go for a hike, go for a walk, sit down, take out your notebook and just write down everything that you see, everything that you feel. If the wind is blowing, what does it feel like? What is the forest smell like? If you're in a city, is it dirty? Is it clean? What can you hear? Because all of these things can help you to add a bit more of a real world juiciness to your environments. Now, I suppose unofficially, my very last tip would be to give yourself a break sometimes. If you're on a trip or you're traveling for pleasure, there's no use you wandering around with your nose stuck in your notebook the whole time. There's no use you spending all of your time sitting down, scribbling away or tapping away on your laptop. Because we go out and we travel to experience new things. As writers, we write from our experiences in a combination of either something that we have experienced or an imaginative scenario based on interactions that we have experienced before. You're not going to experience the full range of everything that you can experience in this new place whilst you're traveling if you're spending all of your time writing. So just remember, it's okay to give yourself a bit of a break. Anyway, that was my very, very quick 5 tips for writing whilst you are traveling, and I hope they've been useful for you. If they have, or if you've got any tips of your own to add, feel free to comment them below. Don't forget to click subscribe and ring the little bell so you know that when there are new videos up. Bye!